Hello, hello, workers and friends. Welcome back to Working Class Revolt. I'm one of your hosts, Dust James, the Marxist Leninist truck driver. I'm coming to you live from my humble home in rural North Carolina, and I'm absolutely. Let me get rid of that for you. Everybody, settle in. Please share this out. Share this on Twitter. Share this on Facebook. Hit the like button, and please get in the comments. Ask a direct question. I'm absolutely honored to be joined by my great co-host from the land down under, union organizer, brother David Fox. How's it going?
Very good, thank you.
Right on, right on. So we regret to inform folks, if people saw some of the promotion for this, we were going to have an honored guest on. They're unable to make it due to logistic issues. Also, our young comrade and co-host from the UK, Scotland, the United Kingdom, is also unable to make it. So we apologize for that. We're going to go old school. It's going to be like it was in good old times when we started this. Me and Brother Fox, we started this working class revolt program about, what, going on 2.5 years.
It's been some
And we
time ago.
start, yeah.
Mm.
We started this with a study of William Z. Foster's The Three Internationals, and
Mm.
we're still pushing and going ahead. Um, just a quick shout out to the people that are already out there. Shout out to Johnny Blaze. Shout out to Itzla X. Thank you for coming on. Shout out to Don Deering. Don Deering is a great friend of this program, and we're glad to have your support. Hey, hope they make it next time. Yeah, we're sad our honored guest was unable to come. Hopefully, we'll be able to get him later. And brother Chris, the with the symbols for the working class revolt media collective. He is a butcher, so he has the book and the symbol of his work and study, which is a knife. He's a butcher out there in Canada. Um, Richard Fernando says, "What's today's show going to be about?" Well, if you look at the title, it says "Stand Up, Fight Back." There's been a lot of uneasiness in our community. Um, and we want to get people refocused, re-energized, repurposed, and focused on what matters, and that is the fight for the working class, for the improvement of our conditions, the end of exploitation. So we're going to be highlighting inspiring, revolutionary, and working class movements throughout the world. We actually had a lot more planned. This is going to be a bit shorter show. We're just going to highlight a few positive movements. Anything to say on as far as introducing the show, Brother Fox?
Well, well, it's interesting. It's just a matter of what's happening around the world. And I'll actually just take note of this. Mentioning in the UK, in Canada, the US, and in Australia, New Zealand, workers are fighting back. When material conditions are obviously changing, the conditions for workers are becoming a little less tolerable every day, and it just comes to show that workers will fight back. And I think it's some of the news, some of the news I'm hearing out of the UK. Obviously, I'm also hearing out of the US, but also now around Australia as well. Workers are standing up, and it's actually quite inspirational stuff. And I think we need to report on this more because the mass media isn't going to talk about it, or if they do, they're going to try and water it down or put a negative spin on it and to turn public opinion against the workers. So I think it's vitally important that we're supportive of this, and this is some excellent news when workers rise up. It's an amazing sight to see, and it's certainly an inspiration for everyone to actually, oh, this is the work we need to do and be involved in. And yeah, I'm glad to be actually part of it.
Right on, brother. Yeah, we got the working class is under attack, both by the monopoly capitalists themselves
Mm.
and unprincipled agents in our rank that would put their personal interest against our fellow comrades. Need to be called out from time to time. And we got a lot of struggle as the working class. We got to protect our fellow working class comrades against all types of abuses, both from the capitalists and those who claim to be our friends. So we're going to get right into it today. I want to talk about one of the most inspiring events that happened, just a few months ago. What is going on? It's going on a quite more than a few months, and I can't mention inspiring events without mentioning the heroic struggle and the defiance of the Russian people and the Russian government against the neo Nazi controlled, Western back imposed regime in the Ukraine. Now, my heart goes out to the suffering of anybody in war zone. War is a horrible thing that anybody has to go through. And my heart goes out to all the people in that horrible situation. But it wasn't the Russians who made that horrible situation. It was the continuing encroachment by NATO, the West, and specifically the United States and the monopoly capitalists based in the United States and London. They have been expanding NATO since the 90s, further encroaching militarily and attacking the sovereignty and safety of the Russian people. And too much came to too much, and the Russian people heroically stood up and fought back, and the West responded with sanctions, and almost the entire world from Africa, Latin America, the majority of Asia refused to go along with the sanctions against the Russians for the heroic fight back against the imperialists. And only the imperialists went with the sanctions and the demonization of Russia. And Russia's economy is rebounding. And I think a lot of people like to say, well, Russia's too much eagerness to go to war caused the economic instability somehow, and that contributed to the current starvation in Africa. I have to tell people they're absolutely wrong on that point. The reason why African people are in starvation is because the Western governments and the Western monopoly capitalists have the ability and have the power to disturb the economy. And when the Russian people fought back against neo Nazis on their border, against forces that were mass murdering and committing genocide against ethnic Russians on their border, when they stood up and they put a stop to it, the West tried to impose these sanctions and cause the chaos in the world economy. And they're able to do that because of the power they have. And when Russia stood up against this and asserted their power and asserted their might and told the people of the world that we're no longer going to be a part of this, it was a blow against that power that's holding all of humanity down. Russia didn't cause the economic turmoil. Russia is taking away the power from the West to be able to do this again. And we applaud the denazification of Ukraine, and we applaud the special operation to disarm the regime imposed by Western imperialism. And a lot of folks like to say, oh, well, you're just like puppets of Putin and what have you. And that's absolutely wrong. The working class and oppressed people in this country are under attack by the same monopoly capitalists that control this government that are also attacking the Russians. Those are our allies and the global struggle against the monopoly capitalist here in the West. And it has nothing to do with them having any influence under them. And they are a material ally. They're an ally on a material basis. Let's see, brother Fox, anything to add to that reaffirmation of our position?
Yeah, well, I think what you've said is absolutely true. And the people of Ukraine have been suffering under the US sponsored neo-Nazi regime they have there. And actually, just matter of fact, we're reading up on people are there at the front lines and are doing the journalism in that area, as in the Donbass. Most Ukrainians do not support Zelensky anyway. And a lot of them are fleeing Kiev. When people want to get out, not because they're pure Russians at all. They've had close relations for for hundreds of years, and they're not going to just all of a sudden, just because someone speaks Russian, and make them their enemy. And we understand, and the reason why I call it, well, it's actually just a Nazi regime. Let's face it, they've banned pretty much any opposition party. The Communist Party of Ukraine's been outlawed. So anyone that dares have a different opinion there, it's certainly they've basically either exterminated or jailed. It is the situation's pretty dire there, but look, in the long term, that things will turn around. I think too that what I'm seeing in Europe, Europe's on the verge of near collapse, and if not, it's collapsed already. So is the UK. We're now entering what will spring here. It'll be autumn, but the demand for gas and heating and keep industry going, it certainly is not going to be there anymore. And there's already news that places like Germany or Europe are going to be turned into third world countries, and that you could see the whole shift in the world where how it'll be around Russia and China and predominantly that region. And look, the US is doing everything possible to try and stay as well as number one, but it's lost grip. It's losing. It's spiraling out of control. Just recently, with Boozy Paloozy's visit to Taiwan. And obviously antagonising the situation here, the Pacific. It's put this region in a very, very sensitive, very delicate position. It can be quite a powder keg moment. Our Australian government has just been hopeless in the whole thing. They could have spoke out, they could have advised against it, but they didn't. In fact, they decided to criticise China instead. A lot of people aren't aware, understand China. For obvious reasons, they're not told the proper truth and the history of China. And I thought some good advice. Someone said the other day, to understand China, you need to understand it as there's only one China, a one China policy, and go from there and learn its history. But no, a lot of people do not understand that. They only receive second-hand information, and obviously the media is playing a very big role through the likes of the Australian Securities. It's called ASPI. Yeah, I think it's an Australian Security Policy Institute, which is all funded by weapons manufacturers, Department of Defence, our friends in Washington and CIA, and obviously to make sure, to try and keep the public opinion against China at all costs. But little bit by bit, as things change here, people's opinions are going to start changing too. One thing that is common amongst ordinary working people, we don't want to go war against China at all. We do not. We know what the consequences will be, and even now some people are talking. I've been talking to, there'd be a war against China, again, down to the last Japanese, down to the last Korean, down to the last Australian. That's it. And it'll be, as I said, it'll be catastrophic for ourselves, not just in Australia, but the region as well.
Right on, brother. Yeah, I mean, putting this in global context to start the show really shows what's going on.
Hmm.
The imperialists, the oil banking cartels in the West are losing their power. They're lashing out. They're escalating fights. They're pushing against the rising economic bloc in the East,
Hmm.
and that's what we're seeing. We saw an attack on the Russian people, and when they used, like, let's say Joe Biden over here calling this inflation the Putin tax, and it's
Hmm.
completely and utterly absurd. The
Hmm.
inflation that's being created is a direct attack by the monopoly capitalists in the West against the working class. Inflation is cold, calculated economic warfare against the working class. That's all it
Hmm.
is. It means our wages immediately are slashed. The second
Hmm.
they they decide to let the capitalists run wild, do whatever they want, crash their currency, crash this. They're okay with that. They're going to be
Hmm.
okay. It's us who pay the price. And
Hmm.
and because of this attack, because people are being put to strings to them, and they're ready to stand up and fight back because they ain't got another choice. Unions who have been building workers' power to be able to keep the little bit of wages they got left just had a huge wage cut. So we're seeing strikes all around the country, all around the imperialist bloc, and all around the world. And one of the more inspiring ones that happened in the United States is the teacher strike in Columbus, Ohio. This is one of the biggest strikes in decades. I think over 4,500 teachers um, were on strike, and they're doing it for the students. And I have a clip here I'd like to bring up to play on that situation, and then we'll further discuss.
Mhm.
This is Columbus, Ohio. 4,500 teachers are out on strike here. We're on the picket line. Let's listen to it. The energy's freaking incredible out here. Let's listen to what they got to say.
I have been teaching for 23 years, all in Columbus, and I teach high school English. My name is Regina Fuentes, and I am the CEA spokesperson.
Tell me about why the teachers are out on strike today in Columbus.
Columbus City Schools is over 100 years old. We've only just in the last maybe 2 decades started rebuilding schools. We're dealing with, mice and bugs and just lights going out or power outages, heat that doesn't work, windows that don't open, or, doors that won't lock. Just all these things we shouldn't be dealing with,
Hard for a child to learn under those conditions.
For a child to learn. They can't learn, they can't function. And, the district really needs to realize that. And another thing we're asking for is to reduce the class sizes. We also want to have our elementary schools to have things like PE and art and music, those things that help with your social, emotional well-being. You may have a PE teacher who has to go to maybe 3-4 buildings. Doesn't make any sense. We're using our power right now in this way in order to let them know that, you need us in order to keep this machine moving.
What do you want the general public to know?
That we love our students. We want to be back in the classroom. We cannot wait to be back in the classroom with our kids, but it's not going to be under the status quo that we've always had to accept. We need to change things, and we need to do it now.
So I get this back up. Okay, that's removed. Right on. Hopefully my audio is back. That was very inspiring. For a very heroic woman in the struggle out there, fighting for the teachers as well as fighting for the students. Rat-infested schools that are 100 years old, schools that are falling apart. This is a direct attack on working people and working class institutions and institutions that serve the working class. And these are oppressed communities. Where they segregate people based on housing taxes. Poor Black and brown people are in inferior schools. Teachers in those schools are not treated with respect and dignity and not given the conditions they need. And this is very cold and calculated. Who controls the government? Who controls how much money is given to these schools and which money is given to which schools? The monopoly capitalists control the lobbyists, control the government, and they're choosing. This is a direct assault on us by refusing to give us the basic resources, not only that are entitled to us from our work, but even to run a basic society. They can't even run their own society because they're so greedy and they need these short-term profits. And I'm absolutely inspired to see our teachers fighting back. My kids, my son is still really young. He's going to preschool or what have you, or childcare. But my nieces and nephews are going back to school next week, and inflation. The schools are given the same budget as they were last year, but now that money is worth near 10% less. That's going to our schools. So the schools the inflation gave the schools a pay cut. And these were schools that were already underfunded and already overcrowded. And people are looking at what's going on, and they're standing up and they're fighting back. We should be cheering them on. And hopefully this spreads throughout the country and around the world. Brother Fox, response to that inspiring statement.
Well, certainly, it certainly is. I mean, for the teachers out there standing up and fighting, it's not just more than just the wages and conditions. Standing up for their own, for the public education, that's incredibly important. And education, obviously, we don't need to talk about the importance that it has for working people. But we do have to say this: it's good to see that they are taking the first initial steps to actually stand up to big monopoly, because that's who's behind it. Global monopoly capitalism, telling people they have to cut back even further, and basically services such as education and health, we're told no, that either has to be further privatised or have to be further run into the ground. If you don't have the money, well, tough luck. And I think it's good to see. And look, obviously, for you guys in the US there, that warrants a lot of support. I'd be encouraging everyone, if you're nearby, if you happen to got some time, if you happen to have some time with you, please go down, talk to them, engage with them, show some support. Actually, I'm flying from that too, because you touched on it as well about costs of living. And of course, for us here in Australia, the cost of living is still going through the roof. You just go into a local supermarket or grocery shop, and you'll find that fruit and veggies, right through to other poultry, eggs, milk, all that, it's still quite high. Although petrol prices have come down to some degree, but they are expected to go back up again. But currently, inflation for us, it's at 6.1, but it will be up at 7.75 around Christmas time in the December quarter. But that's just CPI. But and I mean the consumer price index. But the other one is also inflation is going up further and further. And then obviously the Reserve Bank has now put your interest rates on only up by small increments. But if, say, for example, if you're paying off a house that costs $500,000, you're paying an extra $150 a month on top of your mortgage repayments in the first place. So if it increases any further, it's more doubled. So in fact, if your wages stagnate or go down or just lose value, if people are going to find it very hard to get by, they're going to have to either cut back further and further in their spending, or they're going to foreclose. And we're already now got a massive homeless problem here in Australia as well. We've got people living in their cars in the capital cities. And you go into Melbourne, for example, and the capital here of Victoria. I mean, fact is, you've got actually people living in their cars. They've actually had to park them at a friend's driveway or a relative's driveway so they can have access to showers and facilities such as that, but they're still working. And we've got people living in tents now in caravan parks or anywhere they can find a tent. Now, winter time is extremely cold here. I mean, we don't probably at the extremities like you guys in the US or Europe, but however, it's still damn right cold, and trying to live through that in a tent is not the most pleasant experience, believe me. So you've got people trying to find places to live, and also too, we've got people more homeless. Like I go down to my local supermarket here, and in the car park and that, and because underground car park and that, homeless people got to find a place to shelter somewhere. So a lot of them are out there and begging outside the shops. And I go past one week, and there's a new set of faces there. So it's obviously having the ramifications. But workers are gradually fighting back here too. Most interesting, I will send I'll just show this up. Go away. Everyone stop messaging at the moment, please, because I'm about to share this. And I'm not talking about on the chat. I'm just talking about on thing. Oops, wrong one. I'll just share the screen. Give me a moment. Share screen. And Microsoft Edge. That's what I want. Check. Can you see that?
It's loading.
Yeah. All right. I'll scroll it up a bit. Look, my own state branch of the union just recently had a strike dispute with Downer. Well, Downer's a major multinational, but they're involved in all sorts of industries, but one especially from heavy engineering and through to all sorts of services, etc. So you name it, they'll be involved in it. And well, obviously, if this is about the maintenance workers at Newport Railway Workshops. Downer operates out of, obviously for electric trains predominantly. I think they do some locos and other rolling stock as well, but predominantly the suburban fleet. The company there wanted to take a lot of conditions away from workers. I like how they use the language, simplify the agreements and simplify wording, which basically is key word to cut back. Now, these are qualified, skilled tradespeople, and one thing for certain, they weren't going to give anything away. And most important thing out of this struggle, it just shows if ordinary workers stand together and organise and stand together, they actually are capable of achieving extraordinary things by even just like pushing back a tax on their rates and conditions. So there was no trade-offs and no compromise, and they were out in strike. And I'll just scroll this funny little comment they had on one of the in the toilets there. Newport, scabs equal 4. 70 of your fellow workers are ashamed of you. How can you live with yourselves? And I thought it was a great little message of people who want to bust pick lines. And as well, so it made them say, yeah, the golden rule: do not scab. And yeah, so that's been an important struggle there as well. And obviously that was just prior to that as well. Here's another one as well from further action at North Bremis. Nationally, members take another series of stoppages tomorrow. That was back on the 16th. So it just comes to show everywhere workers are prepared to take the fight up. And what's their conditions, even just not just wages and conditions, but just general material common things that are dear to them, and they're prepared to fight for it and prepared to fight and prepared to fight back and gain further. So this is positive news for us. Another actually note as well. I wanted to show this one. I'll just stop screen for a sec. In Australia, in New South Wales, the Rail Bus Tram Union have been predominantly having a lot of stoppages and a lot of strikes on the Sydney suburban and interurban rail network because of the quality of trains that were brought in from overseas, which should have been manufactured in Australia. It's predominantly in New South Wales for them, and it could have been done. They had the means and ability to do so, but they showed they were poor quality. There was problems with them, and especially problems with safety. It's won actually outright a lot of public support. I'll just share the screen again. There are we. Share screen. Where are we? Right, where are we?
That was pretty funny. They wrote in the bathroom, we're absolutely ashamed of y'all scabs coming here breaking the picket line. Never never cross a picket line, brothers and sisters.
Yeah, that's right. So that's another thing as well. Yeah, so people attempted to do that. Well, there's the message, and the public are not going to support you. Where was it? So this is just more of an update, although this was more over operating standards and safety. But this is the new train, so we wanted to set the record straight on the minimum operating standards. Safety is our number one priority. Hazards include broken doors, defective intercoms, vandalism, and human waste. Yes, that's right, human waste. It shouldn't take 60 days to be fixed. If trains don't meet the minimum operating standards, they shouldn't be operating pronto. And it was during an enterprise bargaining as well in the city fleet. I like the comments there. Thanks for sticking up for safe trains despite the government seeking lack of care. And obviously, it shows you through that attention members, a ban on transpositions starts today and runs until 11:50 p.m. on August the 30th. So it's still continuing at the moment. They're putting limitations and bans. It has. Oh, excuse me. I'll get back on my main screen here. And I think it's vitally important that also the safety side about it. And this is, as I said, it's not just about a wage trying to gain anything. This is also about the common public good as well. This is protecting the general public and improving not just the safety of workers, but the safety for everyone as well. So in some aspect, yes, it's an industrial side of it, but it's actually a social issue as well. I mean, it's like, well, the public is asking the state government up there some very serious questions. Why? Why are you doing this? Where's your duty of care towards the ordinary people? And clearly neglecting it. But thanks to working class people organising it, they're taking up the issue and advancing forward with it. And I think what shows out of this, I'll just stop sharing the screen. What this comes to show is basically, it's up to us working people to take up the cause, because just to rely on a government to be elected in to save the day. Well, we've done that many, many times before, and we know what the end results are. We have to take action back into our own hands and do something to force the situation. So even, as I said, even it might be even just simple stuff like this, it's important stuff as well, and they link it to the social consequences, what this can happen on broader society, and I think that's really good. And I mean, one thing is important too. I mean, will they be revolutionary from that situation? Not necessarily, no, but it's quantitative or qualitative changes. All these struggles keep further and workers keep winning, and they can actually start seeing it's the system itself that needs to change to a higher economic mode of production and socialism. They'll get to that point. It's going to take time and education, but that's why it's vitally critical. Where workers are struggling, we're there with them. And at all levels, and educating them so their ability to take up and lead the fight. That's pretty much what it is. There's a lot more I could probably talk about. I could be here for the next 24 hours talking various strikeways, but I want to move on to the UK shortly. But over to you, Dust.
Yes, bro, that's very inspiring, and I see a lot of parallels. If you look at both the inflation, which has effectively cut our wages and our schools' budgets, has done the same to the transportation systems and the United Kingdom, the imperialist bloc, as well as Australia. And it's great to see the workers of the transport system fighting back against that underfunding of our public facilities, of workers' public facilities, and that's very inspiring. I know. I want to get back to this in the United States right now. A lot of parents are sending their children back to school, and if we look at what the past fights to get decent and basic education for our children, at one point in the United States, the school systems did not provide textbooks, and the parents had to provide the text, and pay, buy the textbooks. And it's still in our higher education system. That's a huge racket. They meant to go to certain classes in college and higher education in the United States. You have to buy these extremely expensive, latest edition textbooks. And a lot of times the publishing company will give money or take underpaid teachers on trips, to some big cities and show them a good time to pressure them to force their working class students to buy these textbooks. And in the United States, the workers fought, and at least in primary school and high school, we were able to get the schools to buy the textbooks. But through the years, through the neoliberal period, with the decimation and deindustrialization, there is a link between our school system and the factory system. The school system was basically built alongside the factory system to train working class people to go into the factory, to benefit the factory owners, to facilitate their profits. And we see with the destruction of and deindustrializations and the destruction of the factory system, they've been underfunding the schools because there ain't no factories to go into. And we're seeing these decimated towns. But, we fought to get the schools to pay our textbooks. And we've seen over the years and we've seen over the decades that they've been making what the school system used to fund as far as supplies. They've been transitioning that from the school system to the workers. Pencils, notebooks, uniforms, all these things are expenses. And now we got working families that are dealing with uncertainty in the economy, that are dealing with inflation. Now they have to buy all these school supplies. So a lot of people are broke right now. A lot of working families and working parents trying to send their kids to school are, dealing with that huge expense of trying to buy the necessary supplies, clothes, and other things. It's one of the biggest annual expenses for working families in the United States. And I know a lot of people are going through that, but I think we got to keep putting pressure. We got to support the teachers unions, and we got to pressure for more of those supplies to be bought by the state universally for the people. Another issue in the United States that happened was they are now ending the deferment on student loans. So when COVID broke out, there was economic uncertainty. There was large unemployment. The United States put those student loans. There's a huge student loan crisis in the United States under President Barack Obama. They basically said you can no longer declare bankruptcy on student loans. And so this is the only loan you can't declare bankruptcy on. Once you get a student loan, you live with it the rest of your life. This is the government and corporations directly making policies that benefit the strongest portion of the monopoly capitalists, the bankers, the finance capitalists. and they've been ripping off working people and people just trying to move up, get an education, and actually give back to the society. Like, oh, it would, if free education would actually benefit them, but they need their profits so bad they got to suck it out any way they can. So recently, with the student people, have had the same balance for decades. $100,000 had that balance for decades, and people finally got a relief as the bottom fell out in the economy, when it went into free fall during COVID, during this latest crash. They put it in deferment, and now they're like, oh, things haven't gotten improved. Inflation is high. The small wage increase on the low end hasn't improved conditions. So they decided they're gonna, end the deferment and make people pay. Well, I think to soften some of the outrage, that people can't pay this. They're giving us crumbs, a measly $10,000 loan forgiveness. This is very good and it's beneficial to me, but I think they can do more, and they should do more. And I think we do need to be angry about this and keep pushing for more student loan forgiveness, and keep pushing for restructuring of these loans, and a changing of laws to make sure these loans don't continue to suck the money out of poor people, and fight for free education on secondary level. That's basic stuff we don't have in the United States, that they're robbing from our communities and our society and working families.
That's right.
Brother Fox.
Well, I mean, the same thing here.
Respond or go on. Go ahead.
Oh, well, just a little response here. Look, public education here in Australia has been under attack many years, been done deliberately, and there's been a lot more funding to private education as well. But it's all, but private education, a lot of that, people are going to be unable to afford it anymore. So it's going to put a lot more pressure on an already depleted public system. University here, we guys call it college, I think, college education. We've got what there is called a HEX fee. It's a student debt, really. It came in around about the late 1980s, about 1990, under the Hawke Labor government. But prior to that, it was free for those who are able to obtain the points to, the percentage points to go into university. From there on, students are given a debt. A loan, but constantly it puts them into a lot of debt, and they could be paying for years if for years they'll have to pay that off, along with if they wanted to borrow extra money for a house. It will also be extra hard for them if they can't find work in their certain fields they can after their study. So what used to be free is taken off a long time. It was taken off a long time ago, and basically turning the universities into schools of profit, basically, and obviously open it up to international markets or international students to come in, because they know they can want to make a lot more revenue that way. But that was on to the detriment of the local students here. So it's going to be a long-term fight back, and there's no doubt about that. It's not going to be an overnight thing. I'd love things to be overnight, but it doesn't work that way. We all know that. But there's quite interesting parallels between here and the US. Now, something a little bit different. I wish, William would have been best off talking about this, but I thought, in William's absence, also the UK, it's basically looks like it's on the verge of a general strike, which hasn't been on the cards for over 30 years. Obviously, it started off with the RMT union, which is covering the rail drivers. Nurses have been out on strike. It's gone to the dock workers, and now to the postal, and also the bin workers. That's the municipal employees that collect the bins. It's spreading like tentacles all over. And I just wanted to play this little bit from the UK. It's quite inspirational. It's on Proletarian TV on YouTube. So if you wish to subscribe to it, feel free to do so. Just let me share the screen first. And share screen. And do it again. Where are we? Give me a moment. All right. And I shall play it.
Who's been on the picking line today? Today's rally has been called by the London Division and the Anglia Division. But we call it for today because that battle out there is where Simon Thompson and the executive board members and the other scientists work for this industry, because it's completely unacceptable after coming through a pandemic and the work that our members done during that pandemic, putting their lives on the line, connecting the country, collecting and delivering test kits, producing massive profits for this company, and then to tell you you're only worth 2%, whilst at the same time giving away 500 million to the shareholders. It's completely unacceptable. We know, because we've seen today the pictures, the videos, up and down the country. The first time postal workers have been on strike for 12 years. Those pictures and videos from social media have been fantastic and prove one thing: our members back our union. We do not back Simon Thompson in the bowl. Just want to welcome all the postal workers across London, but we've also got a big contingent of postal workers from the Anglia division. You're welcome. We've also got many of our retired members here today. Good to see you. Welcome. We also want to welcome our post office council members who are trying to get inactive trained. Welcome you as well. And we also welcome all those trade unions. You can see banners here today, and we're going to have some speakers in a little while from trade unions who have come here today to show their solidarity. And now welcome as well as the members of the public that have shown up as well. Because what's really important is that all of you, up and down the country, postal workers, serve our communities. You know the people that you deliver to. The people you deliver to know the value of a postal worker and the work that you did during the pandemic. So look, we're going to have a few speakers now, but I just want to welcome everyone here today. Thanks for coming, and this is just the first day. We have got to make sure that we look like this in the next few weeks as well. Okay? So look, the first speaker today is Mark Belfry, London Divisional Rep.
Okay, so that's quite inspiration stuff. I love our British comrades. They do a good fiery speech as well at a lot of these rallies. And what's interesting to show through is the amount of working class solidarity through throughout the whole spectrum, and the amount of other unions are now coming in support of each other. And I think what's the beautiful part about that? When people realise their power, they're not afraid to take on the system anymore, and take on the bigger fight. It comes to show there's actually defiance of draconian anti-work, anti-union law as well, and that's been to get that break out of that bubble that we actually don't have to put up with this anymore. We don't have to cop this anymore, and we're prepared to have a go. The struggle obviously has to advance to a higher level, but you could just see with even that speech, it's not just about the wage increase as well, but it's also about the value of the broader public community at large. And that's why it's vitally important. It's not just a matter about what we're getting in our pockets every week. This is actually a broader social issue as well. And once again, it just comes to show that working class people around the world are the ones that are taking it up and they want to put that and actually be a force for social change. It's like when you and I, William, did the first study of dialectical materialism. There was that paragraph, why we focus on the working class. That's the class that's coming into being. Yeah, it's been on the retreat for the last 40, 50 years in our respective countries, probably 40 for us. But yeah, however, at the end of the day, it's they're the ones that we need to focus on. Obviously, we have our allies as well. out there, and we need to have them link up with us. But they're going to be, it's the class itself, because they play the leading class in this. And I think this just clearly shows this is just a demonstration, one demonstration of this, but and a few examples that it's happening around in our respective countries. I mean, there's many, many more. And obviously, I'd like to give a big shout out and solidarity to all the comrades out there in the UK, obviously taking up the good fight, and also expressing solidarity with the unions in the UK, but also equally at the same time, I'd like to express my solidarity to all the workers in the US, actually taking up the fight now, such as the teachers, such as many others out there, the ALU, and many others. I think that's important that we have expressions of solidarity, and how I think the big talk about is how we can support ourselves internationally, because that's going to be the big question for everyone. How we now break beyond our state and national borders and operate internationally as a class.
Right on, brother. I think that's gonna do it for tonight. We didn't short show today, short and sweet. Be sure to share this out. Tell your friends about this. Maybe if I can give a few concluding remarks. The monopoly capitalist, the banking imperialist class, based in Wall Street and London, has declared war on the people of the oppressed people of the world, has declared war on the people of Russia, and they've declared war on the working class in their own countries. And we got to stand together. We got to not take the continuing worsening conditions, and we got to build power and fight back against them. And we can build power on the road to socialism. And always, comrades, raise your fists. Dare to struggle.
Dare to struggle.
Dare to win.
Dare to win.
All power to the people.
All power to the people. Thank you.
Good night, comrades.
All the best.